Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And the international amateur free agent signing period gets underway today. Thanks to all the members of the Worldwide Scouting Department over the past couple of days who have shared your thoughts with us. It is Tuesday evening as I am beginning this episode. The Yankees and the Red Sox in real world baseball are into the bottom of the eighth inning. The Yankees finally just got Mr. Crochet out of the game in the bottom of the eighth, but they still are down 2-1. Outside of Anthony Volpe, of all people, the Yankees didn't do much with Crochet today. My hope is that although Crochet has set a career high in terms of the number he threw today in this outstanding performance, that the Red Sox will still regret taking him out and turning things over to their bullpen. But we will find out for sure, likely before the end of this episode, unless this turns into one of these old school 4+ hour back and forth games in the playoffs between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and they have played many of those over the years in both the postseason and the regular season. And the Worldwide Scouting Department, as we turn our attention back to this fictional universe, has opined on this year's IAFA class. And interestingly, only 3 players received number 1 votes from the Worldwide Scouting Department. Scott Donovan was a fan of Dave Slim Duncan Hernandez, the right-handed pitching prospect. Looks like he could have an absolutely filthy arsenal to go with very good stamina and good ability to hold on the runners. Don't love the extreme development risk there, but if there's a pitcher to go for, it's hard to argue against Dave Hernandez. The $2 million demand that he has out there is also very intriguing. We have only $4.75 million to spend this year, so as little as anybody in baseball. And the chance of perhaps adding a couple players, including a big-time pitcher like Dave Hernandez, is certainly an intriguing option. The OSA is much less high on Hernandez than our scout. They think that his control is absolutely putrid. The general consensus of the Worldwide Scouting Department was that you liked the batters available a bit better than the pitching class, but to be fair, there's only one pitcher that I really focused on, so I may have kind of led the crew to that recommendation just by virtue of my opinions on the class. I don't know that Hernandez is going to be the first guy that I go after, Scott, but if we decide that we're going to go for multiple people in the class, he's certainly on the list. And if we decide to go for one big gun and strike out on him, if Hernandez is still around, could be a very interesting player to potentially pivot to. And we head to the top of the ninth with the Yankees still down 2-1. Chapman ended up getting out of the inning for the Red Sox, so only 3 hitters or 3 outs potentially left for the Yankees, and we'll see if they can hold the deficit to just 1 run against the Red Sox here in the top of the ninth. While that's happening, we'll turn our attention back to the IAFA pool, and perhaps not surprisingly, in a year where only 3 players were recommended as top picks by the Worldwide Scouting Department, the 280 potential players are the ones who garnered the interest among the position players. Center fielder Raul Bedford Bill Mirando, the recommendation of Ravenspawn 3, Not My 4-ply, and Almost Scientific History clips. The gap power, home run power, and eye, all excellent to potentially spectacular. The contact seems like it'll be fine, may strike out a little more than ideal. Decent speed, like the high adaptability and baseball IQ, solid range in the outfield. Bedford Bill, certainly a interesting prospect for us to consider. Looks like a big-time corner outfielder. He was, however, just a bit less popular with the worldwide scouting department than the German shortstop Nils Marquis Mensch. DLL first base 14, undercover boomer Dustin Durbin, and Cervalarian all have Mensch at the top of their lists. Pretty similar profile, may strike out a little bit less than Mirando does, but similarly potentially excellent gap power, home run power, and Mirando probably draws a few more walks. Mensch, slightly better speed to take advantage of that gap power, but his base running instincts are not quite as good. Is a potential infielder who looks like he could play a number of positions in the infield, although not necessarily spectacular defensively. But if you are a guy with well above average gap power, home run power, and and you can play a better than competent defensive infield as a switch hitting infielder, probably going to have a lot of value. So I do agree with the worldwide scouting department that Mensch and Mirando are probably the two most interesting position players, both looking for very similar money at $2.8 million. There were several other players noted as fallback options from the worldwide scouting department, so the likes of John Perez, Oscar Lopez could be guys to consider depending on if we go for a big ticket item and strike out. There may still be some interesting players on the board. As I said, though, there is a definite thought this year on building a bigger class. The pitcher Hernandez looking for $2 million, and then a couple of infielders that I really like, not looking for big money. Shortstop Hugo Alvarado, also known as Rags, switch hitting shortstop. Big difference between him and Mensch is that we know that Alvarado has a high work ethic, as some of you noted. It's a little bit of a bummer with Mensch that we don't know his personality. Alvarado does have the extreme development risk and not quite the same potential home run power as Mensch, but with that $1.1 million price tag, certainly a potentially bigger bargain. Carlos Rodriguez with a $1.9 million price tag also has a very similar profile, a little better contact than either of the other infielders, a little less power, like the high adaptability and work ethic. So there's definitely an argument that you go after an Alvarado or a Rodriguez with the likes of the pitcher Hernandez and perhaps get a very high-level, interesting class. That is definitely something that I'm thinking about, as I know those of you who have followed me know I tend to go more often than not to try to get the one big ticket item that I really love the most. But I agree with the assessment of many members of the worldwide scouting department that there's not necessarily tons of differentiation among some of the top hitting prospects, and it's certainly a year to consider a more diversified plan. But when all is said and done, I think I'm still going to try to swing for the fences with one big move. If that does not work out for me, I think that pairing an Alvarado or a Rodriguez with a Hernandez is an incredible fallback plan. And even if we strike out on a big ticket item and we can only get one out of Alvarado, Rodriguez, or the pitcher Hernandez, it's still certainly not a disastrous class. So the question comes down to the center fielder Mirando or the shortstop Mensch. And ultimately, it was a tough decision for me. It was a tough decision for the worldwide scouting department, but the WWSD slightly favored the infielder Mensch, and that's what we're going to go with as well, at least in terms of our first effort. Some differences in the strategy among the worldwide scouting department as far as Mensch. Both Cervalarian and DLL First Base 14 recommended spending around $3.75 million on Mensch. If we strike out, move on to Plan B. And as we noted, there's lots of Plan Bs out there. In contrast, Undercover Boomer, one of the other scouts that recommended Mensch, was saying, don't fool around. There's 20 some odd teams that have more money than you do. There's no teams that have less money than you do. If Mensch is the guy you want, offer him the whole $4.75 million right now. Take the shot. Try to get him signed. With the demand being $2.8 million, I think even in a very competitive year like this, where there's a lot of teams with more money than we have, if we do come in big at the start with the offer, I think we probably lock him up for $4.75 million. $3.75 million is definitely more of a dice roll. I think there's a chance that you don't get him, but maybe you find out that you don't get him quickly, and that gives you the opportunity to pivot to one of the other options that I've talked about. And the Yankees have now fallen behind 3-1 in the top of the ninth. A 2-out RBI hit by, of course, the former Astro Bregman against Bednar on the mound for the Yankees, and they're now down 3-1. As you know, if you followed me through the years in OOTP, hate these best of three wild card series because there's so much variability. I didn't feel real good about this series for the Yankees against the Red Sox, given how well the Red Sox played against the Yankees this year. Doesn't mean that if we hold the Red Sox here to a 3-1 lead that we can't come back in the bottom of the ninth. We do have the top of the order coming up. Goldschmidt, Judge, and Bellinger, and then hopefully more than that. But certainly not looking too good for the guys in pinstripes right now, and I'm sure Patrick DeBonis and some of the other Red Sox fans of this series are enjoying things right now. But it ain't over till it's over, as our old friend Yogi used to say. But our decision-making process for this IAFA class is over. And if we think Nils Mensch is the best player in this class and think that a switch-hitting infielder with potentially outstanding home run power, eye, and gap power is the best option out there, I think we're going to offer him every penny that we can offer him right now, just because there are so many other teams that can outbid us. And if we lose to him, to one of the teams with more than $4.75 million, at least we will hopefully lose fast and be able to pivot to some of the other options that are out there. There's a chance we get him at $3.75 million. Or somewhere in that area, but there's also a chance that we get in a bidding war and we have to go up to 4.75, and then we find out that someone with more money than us swoops in a few weeks from now when all is said and done and takes him from us, and there might be less attractive options still available from some of the Plan B options if we wait that long. So we are going to be aggressive with Mensch, trying to bring him on board for every penny that we have. So $4.75 million to Marquis Mensch. And we'll see if we can get the infielder locked up. One of the things that I really did like about him, for a 16-year-old, he's reasonably well developed. And you can, to be fair, say something pretty similar about Raul Miranda. The only difference there is he's not quite as developed with the contact, which you might expect given that we think he is going to struggle a little more in terms of avoiding strikeouts. But for 16-year-old players, both of these guys are reasonably well developed. A little bit of a gamble not knowing Mensch's personality, but as some of you have noted, a German shortstop would be kind of interesting, and we'll see if we can bring Nils Mensch on board to the Colorado Rockies organization. And the Yankees did hold things there at 3-1, so headed to the bottom of the ninth inning. Need at least 2 to keep the game going. But we've got the guys that we'd like to have at the plate on and coming up rather than on. Hopefully they'll get on base. And at least we've gotten Mr. Crochet out of the way. And in the meantime, we'll hopefully find out what's going to happen with Mr. Mensch in relatively short order. Give ourselves an opportunity to potentially pivot if he decides to go in a different direction, likely for more money. And we have gotten Nils Mensch signed, the big, bold offer. Hopefully ends up paying off for us. We'll certainly track what the likes of Mirando and Hernandez do over time. We'll add them to our short list, so those of you who recommended them over Nils Mensch can second guess us if Mensch flames out and either of those other players become a big-time star. But hopefully Mensch will become a star for us. We'll know more probably 6 or 7 years from now in this fantasy baseball universe. And as we start moving forward, closing in on the preseason, a little over a week from now, the Yankees have their leadoff hitter on, single by Goldschmidt, and the captain is up at the plate. I would be a little worried about Chapman if I were a Boston Red Sox fan right now. At this stage in his career, I'm not intimidated by him as a Yankees fan. I think we can get to him. And 3 singles in a row now by the Yankees. Judge and Bellinger with back-to-back singles. Unfortunately, no runs across, but the bases loaded for the New York Yankees with no outs, and Giancarlo Stanton coming to the plate in the bottom of the ninth. And unfortunately for my Yankees, Stanton went down swinging, so Jazz Chisholm now up with the bases loaded, 1 out. Chisholm's first plate appearance of this evening. Our oldest Chapman, the former Yankee, still on the mound, still hitting triple digits, but the Yankees have had their way with him so far, but still need to actually get a couple of runs across. And we've made it to the start of the preseason. Not surprisingly, no change in our budget, which remains at $250 million. So we do still have some financial flexibility if we want to clean up some cheaper free agents in the coming weeks. Yankees are down to their final out. Chisholm flew out. Right now, we have a 2-2 count with 2 outs to Trent Grisham, who had that incredible year for the Yankees this year, both offensively, which was unexpected, and defensively, which is a little more expected, down to their final strike at this point after loading the bases with no outs against Chapman. We'll find out shortly whether or not the Yankees are up 1-0 or down 1-0 in this American League Wild Card Series. And unfortunately, for those of you who are Yankees fans like me, the game is over. Trent Grisham struck out swinging, so the Yankees put 3 straight runners on to get this inning started, and then Chapman got out of as big a jam as you can possibly be in. Nothing worse than bases loaded with no outs, but he did the job for the Red Sox. Congratulations to Boston, and we are on to game number 2. And as we continue through the offseason, the pickings are getting a little slim on the free agent market. As we talked about a couple episodes ago, we ultimately decided we were going to focus on retaining a couple of our key players, notably the infielder Cody Schreier, and then also the veteran reliever Justin Gibson. So we did that, which meant we don't really have a lot of debate about what our 26-man roster is going to look like next year. However, I do appreciate the feedback that several of you have given me, and that I can't disagree with, that relying on the fragile Derby Mahez and the wrecked Mr. Tovar as key infielders for us is not optimal. And we do have a potential option that's developing here. You may remember Luke Dickerson. We've talked about him a little bit over the last several episodes at this point, because he is a player we thought about last year before the trade deadline, and another guy that we mentioned when we decided to bring Schreier back in the infield. Dickerson, second baseman, fragile physically, so he doesn't necessarily fit what we need, is a 30-year-old. Also has an outspoken personality with a low work ethic, so not necessarily the best combination there. But he is a veteran who can play a number of defensive positions capably to borderline exceptionally. In the case of left field, he's got speed and good base running instincts, a little bit of pop in his bat. Over the course of his major league career, he's been a league average offensive player, although he is coming off one of the worst seasons of his career, hitting just .219, and he has turned 30. But he was a guy who was looking for over $10 million when the offseason began, and his demand now is $3.2 million. And importantly for us, he's willing to think about a minor league contract that becomes a guaranteed one-year major league contract. He is a guy who has enough major league service time that even though there's an option year left, he could refuse an assignment for us. But I think bringing him into the organization in case we have injuries in the spring and having him in AAA for the potential first 30 days of the season, if he doesn't make the roster, gives us a little more insurance. We're always going to try to save a little bit of money, so we'll offer him $2.5 million instead of $3.2 million, minor league deal with a major league option. And he's pretty set on the amount of money he wants. We'll bump it up to 2.8. And he says he's willing to think about it. So at this point, having Dickerson as an insurance policy, I think, helps. There's definitely a chance that we could lose infielder during spring training. I feel pretty confident that either Mahez or Tovar will spend some time on the IL this upcoming season. It's very conceivable that they both will. So it's possible that because of injuries and other things, Dickerson could be ending up on the major league team for 162 games if things don't go well injury-wise. Gives us a low-priced, capable veteran. Again, not necessarily the greatest influence in the clubhouse, but given the focus that I have on player personalities, I think we can probably handle one guy who's a little bit more prickly if need be. Taking a look at team chemistry right now, happy. Tovar's a captain. We've got strong leaders in Pack Jr., Schreier, Roberts Jr., Schreier, and Chris Roy are spark plugs, although Chris Roy's spot on the 26-man roster is definitely in jeopardy, and nobody with any real negative player classes, although as we talked about, could be adding an outspoken player if the contract offer that we have now made to Mr. Dickerson ends up being accepted. And we did get Luke Dickerson signed, so as I mentioned, he'll certainly be in spring training with us, has a chance at making the team out of spring training, depending on what the rest of the roster looks like, the options that we've got ahead of us, as well as potential injuries. And even if he doesn't make the team, we've got probably until the end of April, early May, whenever we get to 30 days of the season to potentially promote him if we want to keep him in the organization. He'll have the opportunity to opt out at that point, but it's not impossible that he'll just stick with us in AAA. We are a team that's won 3 World Series in a row, so maybe he really wants to be with a winner, although judging by some of his personality traits, that might not be on the top of his list. And we've got about a week and a half until the start of spring training. A little better in the development lab than the last time we checked in. The youngster Johnny Castillo continues to excel with his bat speed program, which could be big for us. And importantly, both Leo Martinez and potentially Derby Majes look like they're on track with their strength and conditioning programs. Unfortunately, all 5 of the other programs are generating frustration, but Chris Kennedy not too far off in his endurance training. 5 Tools Roberts also, with a little bit of luck over these last 10 or 11 days till these programs over, might be able to get to a successful point. I'd say at this point, if we can get 4 successful programs when all is said and done and nobody who regresses, that would be a pretty decent result, particularly given the way this trip through the development lab for us was looking a few months ago in game time. And we've made it to the start of spring training, so right now we will focus on figuring out which 60 players will be joining us in the spring. We'll also sim ahead to day 2 of spring training when we find out what happened in the development lab. We have had some good luck since we checked in just a week and a half ago. Martinez and Majes still on track, Castillo excelling, Kennedy, as we hoped, now on track with his endurance training, and David Guadrone, the youngster, our first-round pick from a year ago, in the supplemental pick, also looking like we may end up getting him with a successful result. So certainly seems like there's a chance for 5 successful results a day away. I can't contradict myself from just 10 or 11 days ago in game time. If we get 4, I'll be happy, but certainly would hope that we get 5 at this point. And we got a 6-0 win against the Dodgers to get spring training underway after an epic playoff race with them for the NL West title last year, and an epic series against them that we did end up winning in the postseason. We ended up with the 4-4 for unsuccessful and successful programs, so obviously we're a little greedier yesterday. Kevin Roberts Jr., no improvement in gap power. Unfortunately, the endurance program for Chris Kennedy and Josh Joss not successful when we were trying to maybe magically turn those relievers into guys who could start for us, given that we've got them signed to really good contracts. Also, unfortunately, the young outfielder Phil Dingwell, no improvement with his 2-strike approach, but doesn't look like any of those players regressed at all, which is positive. Leo Martinez, strength and conditioning program successful, injury proneness from somewhat normal to normal. He's won back-to-back Cy Young awards. His skill set is that of one of the top pitchers in baseball. Our big concern with him is keeping him healthy, and certainly a positive result in the strength and conditioning program. Nice to see there. Similarly, Derby Majes, proneness from very fragile to somewhat fragile, so still expecting the young infielder who was an all-star for the first time last year and also won a Silver Slugger at third base to be someone who often deals with some injury issues, but hopefully a little bit fewer injury issues than he previously would have been dealing with. David Guadrone, the supplemental first-round pick from a year ago, current control rating improved a little bit. Guadrone definitely will be fighting for a spot in the rotation in spring training. The lefty only pitched 4 games in AAA last year after we put him on a plan where all of the local fans of our team throughout the minor league organization got to see him pitch a little bit with their teams. 2-1 with a 3.86 ERA in AAA. Don't know that he's quite ready for the majors, particularly with the good pitching staff that we have, but hoping he will be up with us in the not too distant future. And then Johnny Castillo, one of the top young prospects in our organization, outstanding result generating bat speed, current and potential power both improved by 5, so his ceiling even a little higher than it was before. The 21-year-old now not looking too far off major league quality. Spent last year in rookie ball, A ball, and high A. Would think that he'll start this year in high A or perhaps double A. He is in the major league camp with us right now, although realistically probably not going to be on the major league roster. Tend to think he probably would be starting the season in double A. Looks like he's, more than capable of holding his own at that level. So probably where he will end up, but those and the other decisions will still need to be made. Next time around, we will make our plans for the shorter journeys through the development lab over these next 4 or 5 weeks in spring training, and also sim through spring training, find out what happens in the development lab, make some decisions on the 26-man roster, hope the team remains healthy, and set ourselves up for opening day and hopefully an opportunity to win a 4th consecutive world title with these Colorado Rockies. But a lot of work to be done before then, and we'll find out how spring training goes next time around. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.